Do you remember this? From school, from physics class? That's the Mandelbrot set. You also call it Apfelmännchen. There seems to be no English translation. But Apfelmännchen, or the Mandelbrot set, it's a self-referential algorithm that creates fractals. What are fractals? Fractals are, now I'm already having problems to explain it. Fractals are self-similar or self-affine elements in nature. So what is an example for a fractal? EFS as a company, a cell as a little form of EFS, a tree and a leaf, a mountain and a little rock, the desert and the beach. So actually, if you look into nature, you find that it's very rough and it's self-similar or self-affine, and it seems to be everywhere. And this Mandelbrot set is basically a way to describe it with a mathematical model. It's the description of roughness in the world. And the interesting thing about it is, even though this is nature, we did not have the mathematical language to talk about this roughness until Mandelbrot. So maybe some mathematicians and other scientists tried, but they kind of failed, or they were not aware what they found actually. But you know, with the math that we had before Mandelbrot, God could have only created a cupboard, smooth areas, lines. But he could not have created the world. He could not have created nature as it is. And Mandelbrot created the math behind this. And this is very important. And this is Mandelbrot. He even himself looks like an Apfelmännchen, as you see. He was actually a big star in the 20th century because he was a very special scientist. He actually was not so much interested that his peers, other scientists, like his work. He was a very visual guy, like this Mandelbrot set and so on, and he was very known to the public actually. He really looked for a wide audience. And one other interesting aspect about him was that he did a lot research on a lot of different things. For example, on the financial markets. And he was, of course, often asked, how is it possible? You're a world-renowned scientist. Why would you do research on something so banal and evil and stupid like financial markets? This is really beyond you, you know? And he would say, data, a gold mine of data. So that's why I thought, actually he's right. This is a very interesting approach, as you know. Predicting the future or making yourself anti-fragile is what we and I'm trying to do here. So why not do it with the financial markets? Because this is a topic that many of you are interested in. So let's see what we can find out. So, today we're going to talk about what we learned from betting on the financial markets, especially considered the future. So, yeah. I don't want to bore you with theory, what are financial markets, but just let's do this very quick. Financial markets have been created or naturally emerged because companies need money or people. We have people who have ideas, and of course not everybody is born rich and not everybody wants to take all the risk. So these people or these companies or whoever borrows money for some time so that he can do his venture. Even if it's not even a new idea, a lot of companies also need like credits to finance the salaries of their people. But so there is a lot of good reasons. You just need it. So you have on the one side people who need liquidity. And on the other side, actually I forgot one important thing. This is Lloyd Blankfein. He was the CEO of Goldman Sachs during the financial crisis, 2008. And he said this famous thing that he's doing God's work. And people were actually very cynical about that. But he's actually not so wrong. Because money from the financial markets is basically like the air that we breathe. Without it, the engine of life, or the engine of our life at least, cannot work. And without this air, companies, organizations, people cannot work. So he was kind of right, you know? Okay. And so on the other side, you have the investors. I didn't really find a nice word for Kleinanleger in English, so let's call him small investor. I hope this comes close. So big investors, small investors, institutional investors. And they actually, and now it gets interesting, so theoretically, actually investors are not looking to make, or it's not the most important thing, to make a big return. What they're actually looking for is risk mitigation. And even if you think about it, I mean, you followed it also, like when we in our company talk about we have to grow, we have to, actually we never say we need to earn more money. We just think we just have to grow because we don't want to die, basically. It's like development is the only way that we can do to mitigate risk, to be able to pay all the salaries and so on. So of course, companies are money-creating machines, but there is way more to it. So, and this is very interesting because I realized, wait a minute, this is anti-fragility theory. It's like you're not betting on getting rich, you are actually trying not to die. This is what the financial markets are doing for on investor side, you know. But of course, the return aspect is very important. And so, before we get into it, I also got nearly trapped in another little question here. Is it even, same like Mandelbrot, is it even morally okay to think too much about this topic? Or is it worth it striving for money, for richdom, for whatever? And I started working on this topic, and there is a lot of theories about it, and then at some point I realized this is a topic on its own. I can fill books, years at university, and on presentation on this, so I just dropped it, and I just came back to one basic idea. And the question is the other way around. Can we actually afford not to try to get rich? And I found an interesting thing, a thought construct, if this is the English translation for Gedankenexperiment, from Pascal, Blaise Pascal. He was a French philosopher. He's very important because he created existentialism. This is the philosophy where Jean-Paul Sartre then got famous, but he also was the first, or one of the first probabilistic thinkers. So he really influenced a lot of different schools of thought and science and philosophy. And he was also deeply religious. And he asked the question, should you actually believe in God? And he logically concluded that believing in God is the only thing that makes sense. So why? Why is that? So think of it. If you don't believe in God, what would happen? You die, there is no God, what did you win? You won some discussions. You can say then, wow, yeah, I won. But if you die and there is a God, what is happening to you? You will go to hell for all eternity. So this is a really asymmetric risk, you know? So it's either like, wow, yeah, I was right, or hell. So, and now let's do it the other way around. You believe in God, you die, okay, shit happens, but you were part of a community, you had some moral guidance from your religion, so maybe not so bad. You maybe lost some discussions, but maybe the community factor is better, I don't know, this is hard to say. But if you die and there is a God, you will go to heaven for all eternity. So this is anti-fragility. This is an event, a shock, a positive shock that happens to you, which has an explosive positive return. And I will not answer the question now, should we try to get rich? But I think it's kind of the same question. So think of it. If you don't try, what could happen to you? And if you try, what could happen to you? Okay. So, what are we going to do today, therefore? We're going to look at the financial markets, or strategies on the financial markets, to understand, is there a strategy that can predict the future, or let's say the other way around, is there a strategy that is anti-fragile, that is an insurance? We will look at three strategies. The first one is diversification. Second one is quality, so focus on quality. This is like value investing. And the third one is insurance, anti-fragility. I want to make two disclaimers here. First of all, obviously Mandelbrot checked the data, but I didn't. So I hope that what Mandelbrot and all the other people found, that they didn't make calculation mistakes. So I didn't check it, okay? I only read books. So it's my own thoughts mixed with my own confirmation bias from information that I looked for, mixed with people claiming that they analyzed large data sets. So let's hope they were right, okay? And the second disclaimer, I will not go too deep into actual strategies, but there will be one, and this strategy is massively risky and dangerous, or maybe not. This is actually the whole point here of the presentation. But if you fail and lose everything with this strategy, I did not tell you to do this, yeah? This is really your own problem, okay? Good. Actually, we don't have to go too deep into this. You know why you cannot predict the future. First of all, you don't know all the factors because everything that is too far away, the light has not reached you, so you don't have the information. Second of all, on the quantum level is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. You cannot really, you cannot pinpoint complementary characteristics of elements. Forget it. This one, the next one is very good, the unknown unknown. Only because you have no proof for something, it does not mean that the proof doesn't exist. This is a very nice phrase. I will say it in German. Die Abwesenheit eines Beweises ist kein Beweis für seine Abwesenheit. So there are things you can't know. And the next problem, we're living in a very complex, dynamic world. So there are two effects that we have to consider. The first one is the butterfly effect. Butterfly effect says, if you make a very little calculation mistake, or like it's mostly when your data sets have a decimal place, Nachkommastellenproblem, you can get wildly different results. So I will be do something very risky, and I will say the fact that we think we can predict the climate for 100 years is just ridiculous, but please forget it, don't tell this and where did I say this. And the other one is the hawk moth effect, which is very similar. It says, you know, a dynamic system also changes like every 3 seconds. So even if you don't do a mistake, if you make the same calculation 3 seconds apart, you can get a completely different result, you know? So that's why it's very difficult. And then, of course, there are on the other side, our strategies. You know them from yesterday, so I don't have to explain them. What you can do instead. Anti-fragility, the principles. Yeah? So, one too much, yeah. Okay, first question. Would you play this game? So you have $100, 100 euros. Somebody comes to you and offers you this game, coin toss. If you have heads, is it correct? Yeah. You gain 50%. If you have tails, you lose 40%. You have 10 games. Or if you want to have more games, will you play this game with me? I want now everybody who would play this game to stand up and everybody who doesn't play this game to just sit. Please now. So, I'm not an AI that can count in 1 second, all of you, but I would say it's 2/3. Anybody agrees? 2/3 of people are playing this game. Okay, thank you. So, and now, of course, my Mentimeter. There is this famous quote that at least the people who are a little bit interested in the stock market, that says you can expect a 70% return if you invest long-term in the stock market. Who believes this? Who doesn't? Please give us the results. I hope it works. Put your phone here, make a photo. No, Google Lens, whatever. So, now, of course, I did not prepare. Whatever, we will take Georg? Yeah. This is happening in the background, but we can check it at the end, okay? It's fine. So let's see what happens. Maybe, yeah, everybody. So I think it worked, because nobody complained. Everybody ready? Okay, we'll check but you know what, I'm just curious. Let's do it again. Everybody who believes this, stand up, and all the other ones should please sit. I think it's similar again. It's again even more than 2/3 now who believe this. Okay, thank you. Okay. Good, let's get into it. Let's get to the strategies. So, what I did, I present the strategy, and I also present the person behind that strategy, because I think there is an interesting aspect here. So the first one, his name is Andreas Beck. He is, I know him from YouTube, but he seems to be all his life, he worked in the financial markets. You know him. And he wrote a very interesting book, Erfolgreich wissenschaftlich investieren. And he is a diversification guy. He grew up in Germany, in the Bundesrepublik Deutschland. He made He learned a craft, but later he went to university to study philosophy and mathematics, and then he got a fund manager, and now he's a kind of a public figure. And he said, and so this is his life. He comes from a very good time in German history, you could say, after the Second World War, Wirtschaftswunder, stability, basically everything went up for a long time. So what does he believe about the world, if you try to aggregate it from his book? He thinks the global economy is an ultra-stable source of return. He thinks that financial crises lead to disruptions, but this disruption do not kill the system. He thinks that the internal profitability of the global economy is about 7%, so 7 to 10% in the long term. And he thinks the risk of fluctuations over time gets lower, so time in the market beats timing in the market, as you know. And even though single companies, single cells, single countries can fail, can go bankrupt, the whole system will never go bankrupt. So there is also a theory behind it. He didn't mention it in his book, but it's very famous. If you study finance, you all know about this. Some of you probably did. The modern portfolio theory, which says if the oil prices go down, and companies go bankrupt, I don't know what is not the other side, but go up. So he kind of believes in this. That's why the whole the economy as a whole, or hopefully a company with the many cells as a whole, can actually not go bankrupt. Costs. So let's see now how this fund is performing. And I have to say one thing, it's a bit unfair because this fund is only 3 years old, so I don't really know if this is a long-term result here, but or how it will be in the future, as you know. But if we just look at these 3 years, we see that actually he was not outperforming an all-world or MSCI World ETF. So you basically paid more for somebody who had very good and smart arguments, but in the end the performance was less. So it's a typical thing, we anyway know this. If you have to pay financial advisors, you already lost. And Andreas Beck is a nice guy. He says it even. He says, diversify, diversify, diversify. Okay? So that was Beck. It's great, it's very easy to understand, it's very easy to apply. Let's go to quality. Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, similar interesting case. Where did he grow up and when? In the United States. I think he was born in 1940 or something, whatever. So he also lived in the time where the American economy, where the America as a state was the global dominant power. This is the information he got as a kid. See, he came from a good family. His father was already working in the stock market, and he later even got elected into the Congress or something. So he was not like a guy who started from zero. He had a good social capital. But he really comes from a time when the US was at the top, at the peak alone. So again, very interesting, because if you look at his basic assumptions, you see the same thing again. He says, and I tried to aggregate this from whatever I got from him, so there might be more, but he says, actually, if you look at the strategy, the world is transparent. You can see value and quality. So if you are rational enough, and if you're thorough enough, you don't have to follow the herd. So he even says diversification is for idiots. He still says people that are not doing what I'm doing should still do it because it's better than nothing. But actually, it's for beginners. It's for people who don't know what they're doing. Okay? So he also says there are trustworthy, stable market participants. So there is a so-called homo economicus, so people who act rationally. And he also says he doesn't believe in the whole global economy, but he believes in the American economy. This is even a quote from him: never bet against the American economy. So let's take a look at his strategy. So I think you don't need to read this here, just up there. His strategy, he's very famous for one thing which is called value investing. Value investing basically means you try to understand the true value of a company, and then you wait till this company drops under this value. Very simple, like let's say a company owns a building. Let's say it's Japan, 1980 something. And you for some reason own a skyscraper in Japan. Then this skyscraper is as much worth as half of the US probably, property price, because this was the height of this. So if your stock price, let's say you do a lot of things, but your stock price drops, the whole market capitalization of your company drops below the value of this one skyscraper. Actually, you identify the value, They say, because if this company goes bankrupt, they just can sell their tower and then they will be rich again. So they cannot, so this is for an example, a hypothetical, but maybe also a real example because Japan was crazy back then. So this is what he's trying to do. And he calls it the cigar butt strategy. What does it mean? So he walks on the streets and looks on the floor, and if he sees a cigarette where there is a little bit of white left, he just takes it up and for free takes the last, what does he take? I'm not smoking. Drag. He takes the last drag, thank you. So, but this is not all. This is what he's famous for, but of course Warren Buffett is a little bit more complicated than that, and he had this guy, Charlie Munger, who died, by the way, 1 month ago at the age of 99 years, I think. Is it true? No. And he actually had a little bit a different approach. He said, no, this is not everything. And also Buffett understood, you know, the problem with a good strategy is once everybody starts to copy, over, everybody in the market were doing it, so the market became fully efficient, so it didn't help anymore. So then came in Charlie Munger and said he also had other theories in his head, and they got big friends and they worked together for 50 years or something. And he said, no, the true value of a company is not in the numbers, you will love to hear this, it's in the people. So you have to find out about the people in this company. Go and talk to the managers, listen to the Gerüchte? The gossip, thank you. The rumors, the gossip, find out how these people are, and so on. And that's it. And then Buffett really changed his strategy a bit, and he actually bought sometimes companies that you would say were expensive, because, you know, quality pays. Even though they're very expensive, if they have a quality, you can invest in them. And so it went on. And you know what is very interesting? Buffett has now around, also some people will know it better than me, but let's say about 100 billion. And Munger died with 3 billion. And you ask yourself, they worked together for 50 years. How is this possible? Well, it turns out that if the Buffett just started a bit earlier, and this makes a big difference in the end. So, but we will get back to that. So just that you know, Munger died poor, so poor guy, yeah, 3 billion. Okay. So again, quick evaluation. Yeah. Warren Buffett seems to be when you ask ChatGPT, when you ask Google, he is always there. Like in all these lists, he's considered to be the greatest and biggest investor of all time. So much for that. So it seems to work, maybe. Good. And now, the third strategy, insurance, anti-fragility. So there is a guy called Nicholas Nassim Taleb. He's from Lebanon. And this is very interesting now. Listen to this. Lebanon is a failed state. This is not like the world that we live in. You know, Austria is a little bit like US and Germany. We think the world is stable. But Nassim Taleb comes from Lebanon, and you know Lebanon, even though the state as such didn't exist for a long time, before it was the Ottoman Empire, and then it was another empire, I don't know. But the point is, this is the center of human civilization. So basically, this country, or this area there, this county, exists for 6,000 to 10,000 years. Some of the oldest cities in the world, Byblos, the city right outside of Beirut, is 8,000 years old. So you imagine, for 8,000 years, you can go to the same fish restaurant at the corner. And he comes from there. And so this guy comes from a stable world. You know, they were already having civilization when we ate stones, basically. Okay, and so and of course, it's a bit an illusion, because also Beirut was destroyed many times in history, like other cities, but it rebuilt. It's anti-fragile, so to say. So he was a kid during the Lebanese civil war. The history is whatever, forget the history. The point is, he sat in the basement while outside a war was happening for 15 years and basically destroyed the country. So he did not learn what Warren Buffett learned, or what Beck learned, or what we learned here in this room, that everything is so stable and so safe. He saw that the world can just collapse. Everything you know, you love, can just collapse, you know? And you know, there was this explosion in the Beirut harbor 2 years ago. This is like a fractal, you could say, of the state failure of the country. So this state is simply not working anymore. It's over. So what did he do? He moved to the US. He as a kid, he read a lot of books, and then he studied economy and then mathematics and so on. And he basically came with a completely different view there, and he was shocked, you know. He went to university, and somebody taught him something like this market portfolio theory, and he said, this bullshit, this cannot be right. This is really not how the world works, you know. And imagine, so it didn't seem logical to him after his experience. So he founded. He had a strategy, which I will tell you. He founded a hedge fund actually, with a colleague called Mark Spitznagel, this guy up there. And we will get into it, what it means. But then he reached a point which he called fuck you money. So Nassim Taleb is interesting because he could stop, he had enough, you know. There are these other guys who never stop, they just go on, but Nassim Taleb had enough because he said, actually, I don't want to be a money manager, a trader. I want to be a scholar, I want to be a philosopher or something. And then he started writing books. And he, of course, read Mandelbrot. And Mandelbrot, basically, all the maths describing how the world works is already in Mandelbrot. But Taleb added something. He described, actually, because Mandelbrot even writes on the first page of his book, I'm sorry, this just helps you to understand how the world works, but I have no idea what to do against it. But Taleb has an idea what to do against it. And so he first wrote The Black Swan, which was a black swan itself, because it was a supermassive success. And then he wrote Anti-Fragility, which I believe is the peak of everything I ever read in my life. And then he wrote Skin in the Game. And actually, these books are like fractals. You can read a chapter from one book, another one from the next book. It's the same idea, but thought from every possible perspective. Financial market, health, career, love life, it doesn't matter. It's a philosophy of everything. And it's built fractally. And also his colleague Spitznagel also wrote the book. This is a very technical book. So you remember the bet that you did with the coin costs? It's basically a whole book only about these coin costs. So it was very technical and very hard to understand because it's very mathematical, but I gave it a try and I learned a lot of interesting things from there. And what I want to say is, Beck is easy to read and easy to apply. Buffett, very easy to understand and read, but incredibly hard to apply. So even if you know what he does, it's so much work, you need such a long breath, as we say in German, to do this. And now we get to Taleb, and Taleb is exactly the opposite. It's super hard to understand what he actually means, that's why you need to read 5 or more books. But once you understand it, it's super easy to apply, because he says basically positive biases. Have your principles, apply them, don't think too much about them. So the way how we build EFS with principles, not with strategies, you know, and the way how anti-fragility works. Okay, and now let's get into it. And I really hope I can pull this off in English now. So, you cannot predict the future. I'm sorry, you cannot hear this phrase anymore. It totally comes out of my mouth all the time. But the first thing is this induction problem. The absence of a proof is not the proof for its absence. So you cannot know that the sun is going to set tomorrow. I mean, we think so. We can say there is a 99.99% probability because we know how the planet system works and our sun is not a white dwarf yet. But you know, what if tomorrow some alien race decides they want to harvest the energy of our sun and they don't care because we are like ants to them, like bugs, you know? And you simply cannot know it. And there's also no point in being anti-fragile. This is like something that would eat us up, you know? We have no chance. And you know, you remember the turkey problem? It's the same thing. The turkey is being fed, being kept safe, warm, and he collects this data that the world is great, and never does he more believe in that the world is good than the night before Thanksgiving, as this is the longest time collecting this data, and you know what happens on the next day. So black swans have one feature. Even though it's for you a black swan, it's not necessarily a black swan for somebody else. So the aliens that are harvesting the energy of our sun, or the butcher that takes the turkey, or whatever happens to us tomorrow, they actually know what they're doing. And there is tons of examples, but it's this typical thing. You know, you tried, you think you calculated everything, you put all the factors inside, you did everything. And then suddenly the market makes a move, and then you say, yeah, okay, I knew it. I mean, who could have expected that this would happen? And it's very weird, because there are some really crazy examples. If you look like, for example, terrorist attacks, actually, we know that before terrorist attacks, there are often these weird bets that people betting against the indexes. It happened on 9/11. The weirdest case was this attack on the Borussia Dortmund bus, the team bus. So they even found the guy, because this was a super weird bet. That he bet against the share of Borussia Dortmund, and the platform where he did this told the police, and then it really turned out to be this guy. So really crazy. So, and don't tell me somebody calculated with this. So don't tell me you thought, that Borussia Dortmund made a risk management meeting saying, maybe some terrorist wants to explode our bus. I mean, definitely nobody's thinking about that, you know? The absence of a proof is not the proof of its absence, yeah? And even now, Hamas, the question is, because there were also some bets against the Israeli index after this or before this Hamas attack, but I also want to be fair, it can be random. It's not sure if Hamas or somebody acquainted did these bets, these short bets. Maybe just randomly some guy did it, you know? So it's really hard to say. But the guys who did it this time, they did it smarter in a way that it's anonymous. You cannot find out so easily who they are. But this Borussia Dortmund guy was not so smart. He left a trail, so to say. Okay. And now, can you read this? Yeah. So the next principle. We think we live in a fair world. We think, Nassim Taleb calls it Mediocristan. A fair world is evenly distributed. Everybody gets a piece of the cake. So what does this mean? Let me give you one example. We are now here, 5,000 people, and this was a not so good joke. So we are here 250 people, and let's say, we are all pretty evenly distributed on our size, or height, how we call it in English. So what happens if the largest person on the world enters the room, or the smallest? Nothing happens. It has no significant statistical effect. So this is an even world, where everything is even, everybody gets his piece of the pie, where linear thinking works, yeah? IQ, companies under socialism, income of small businesses, this is how it works. But what we often forget, there is also this other reality, which is called extremistan. It's non-linear. There are a lot of scientists who found it, and I'm really not sure if you can read it. So, how do floods at the Nile work? How are words in a language distributed? So the word to be is exponentially more often used as like the word anti-fragility. And the total income of people in the world economy is completely, so Pareto actually, the guy from Pareto efficiency, found this out, that the income of people on the planet is completely uneven distributed. Market shares of companies, I mean, compare Red Bull and then maybe the Coca-Cola one to the rest of all the energy drinks. Or compare Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite and Pepsi to the rest of all thousands of soft drinks, you know? Or compare Harry Potter to 20,000 books that come to the market every year. The world is not fair. The winner takes it all, and we are living in this extreme world. And now you have to add this to the black swan. So a black swan is very hard to define, because you actually don't know what it is. If you would know it, you could do something against it. But the point of a black swan is actually it's not easy to define, because you just simply don't know what it is. And it can happen here, everywhere. Suddenly, something happens that is so big that you just are overwhelmed. And it seems that our reality is like that, you know? So let me give you the other example. I hope I'm correct now, statistically. So we have all an income. And then the richest man or woman on the planet enters the room. What happens? We are irrelevant. All of us are simply irrelevant. We are, as in this case, not the dog wags the tail wags the dog. This is, and now, look, I have two things in my hands. So, this is like an even distribution. No, it is not. Whatever, forget it. But what is actually happening is sometimes more things like that, you know? And this is called a fat tail. And this is just a term that I want you to know, because Nassim Taleb loves to talk about fat tails. But actually the world is full of fat tails. Little things or big things that you cannot predict that have a massive impact on you, okay? So, let's look at the markets. You know, the models that our risk managers in Standard & Poor's or Moody's or in banks or insurances often use, are actually wrong, because what they think risk is the worst thing that ever happened to us. But this is not true, you know, because when you look back, the worst thing that ever happened to us was actually way worse than the worst thing that ever happened to us before, you know. So this was already a black swan, and now we think that this is what can happen. So this is how we built the wall in Fukushima, or this is how we try to save money, or but it's not working like this, you know. When the shock comes, like 2 years ago in Germany, these floods in this one valley, this was incredible, right? There was houses swimming away, and this was really crazy stuff, you know? And so if you look at the financial markets, basically the same thing is happening. There is some quotes here, like Taleb says, half of the profits, this was in Black Swan, written 2007, before 2008, very interesting. Half of the profits of the financial markets in the last 50 years occurred in the 10 most extreme days. So basically, what you build up over 25 years can disappear in 1 hour or in 1 day. But, of course, it's also the other way around. If you, for some reason, buy in that dip, no point in trying to find out what is the strategy, blah, 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 it just goes up. So, I think some of you love Bitcoin. This is basically such a black swan. So, I would be very interested now, let's do it again. What do we do now? So everybody who invested in Bitcoin and made a profit, please raise your hands. Okay, not so bad. Everybody who invested in Bitcoin and made no profit, or at least no loss. See, the interesting thing about finding out about losses is that nobody likes to talk about them. So Nassim Taleb and Mandelbrot even think that these losses that we see, they're not even the true ones, because nobody wants to tell you about the real losses. So this might be way worse, actually, the losses that are going on. And let me stop this one with a quote from Lenin. Lenin, it's not clear if Lenin really said this, but he said, there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are days where decades happen. So the point is, if you look at this worldview, that whatever you try to do, one little coin toss, one killer, one psychopathic killer entering your petrol station in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it is over. But as I said, don't be too sad, it can also be the other way around. There are positive black swans too, yeah? So, and now comes the really, sorry. Actually I wanted to say this. And so, whatever, let's go on. So, and then there is a third principle. And this is even the most shocking one now. It's called ergodicity. It's a really crazy word. So, what is ergodicity? It's actually a concept from physics. And it says that a physical system in physics, will reach every possible state. Okay? So, what does that mean? So, you know, we like to take the S-curve. So, you are being born. You have a long period of very slow growth, then comes the exponential period, and then saturation, maturation, and then maybe death, yeah? So this is ergosity. So how do you calculate the average of this? The average is a so-called, it's a arithmetic average. You see the formula, x plus tan is 2xn through all the steps. So what do you see? It's something like this. I hope. And you will say, yeah, Ralph, what are you telling me? I know about that. I mean, come on. But the problem with this is, you are not ergodic. You're not ergodic, you know, because first of all, these are not the fractals, you know, if you zoom out, if you zoom in, Mandelbrot found this. So actually it's more like this. And sometimes like this and this. And what is also happening is you start here, and then maybe you end here, you know? So, see? So there is a guy who tries to tell you that the financial markets produce like an inherent return of 8.8%. But the problem is this is not your probability. This is the probability of the market. It's not yours, you know? So, you don't have an ensemble probability. You have a time probability. You have one path. It's not like Schrödinger's demon, you know, the cat in the box. The cat in the box has all possible physical states at once, but you're not the cat in the box. You have one life, one path, one time path, And even though the world is getting better, macro, for you, it might be the end. You might go bankrupt. You might have a ruin. Because, actually, you're using the wrong math. Even though if you say, no, Ralph, come on, I knew this. But you're using the wrong math. Or you're not checking if somebody gives you this math, that actually they are betraying you. And they don't even know. They don't even know. I will show you. Because you have to use the geometric average. What is the difference between arithmetic and geometric average? Plus calculation. So A plus B is B plus A. But this is not how the world works. Because in reality, A times B is not B times A. Because if B is already 0, it's over. Or if B is -1, you're completely somewhere else. Like if it depends how you calculate it, you know. So if you, and this is very important. So you have to, when somebody, what you're doing, you're going in the casino or you're playing on the financial markets, and you have only your one path, and you have only actually you should calculate your average geometrically. And what you see, what is happening, especially in the casino, maybe not on the financial market, if you stop, if you start here and stop here. But in the casino, the longer you play, the higher the probability that you lose everything. Even though 20 times in a row you were winning, you will lose at some point. And this is very interesting because the casino and the system doesn't care. The average is there, you know? So you play and play and play, and the average goes up. But you, boom, 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 you know? So, and now you will say, let's go to the next slide. Now you'll say, okay, I will play. A lot of people said they would play this game. Because this doesn't seem to be so bad. No, it doesn't seem to be so bad, right? 40-50 up, 40 down, 50-50 chance. You know, it's 50-50. In the long term, you can again say, okay, in the long term we know the system goes up, but maybe I lose, maybe I win, but it's 50-50. I mean, I cannot do more than 50-50. But I have I have bad news for you guys. So first I thought, let's make a whole big coin toss game all together here in the company, but then I was too lazy, and I thought, AI, you know. So I asked ChatGPT to produce me 100 coin toss games, 10 games in a row, 100 people. It was really cool. And then I took this data, put it in an Excel. Later I thought, actually, maybe ChatGPT could have also provided me with a chart, but whatever, I forgot. And then this came out. So this is, by the way, called, if you want to be cool, a random walk. Mathematicians do that. And if you look at this, what do you see here? It's pretty interesting. So you start with 100, you start with 100 euros, and you have these odds, and 2/3 of you thought, or even more, that this is a good game and you played this game with me. But as you see, more than 50% of you lost. More than 50%. So it's not 50-50. The fractalness or the exponential jumps, you know. So you see that there is an accumulation at 150, and it's not evenly distributed. The next one is then at 350. So it's also not even evenly distributed. So everything that Nassim Taleb found about the world, the black swan, the randomness, the exponential jumps, that you actually lose. With this simple mathematical example, you can prove that more than 50% will lose, even though the system goes up. That's really crazy. And if you play this on, these were just 10 games, if you play this on, the winners, they get incredibly high. You know, the winners are Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Elon Musk. But it's not fair. It's not a fair distribution. The winners have a larger portion than the losers. So this is the world you live in, according to Nassim Taleb. And careful, this is of course a model. We can still say it's not fully reality, so let me show you. Of course, if you do this in reality, geometrical, as if you calculate this, you see, in reality, you're not playing $100, 100 euros, and that's it. You're paying every month, you know. You have a Sparplan, a savings plan. But what you can see, you are path dependent. Even though if averagely it goes 8.8% up, if it's in some years a little bit lower, in some years a little bit higher, big differences arise, you know. So in this case, if you pay 500 euro for an ETF for 30 years, and you have first 5 and then 15, and then you do the opposite one, you see that there is an end result difference of 250,000 euros, or, and this is actually the spectacular number, 40 times your annual savings rate. So you are really not able to control this, you know? This has nothing to do with a good strategy. So, what is Nassim Taleb's strategy then against this? As you know, anti-fragility. So here comes the, the part where you should listen and also should not listen maybe. So what he is doing, you know, you should buy the dip, so when it's the lowest point. But turns out you have no idea when the dip is, you know. Like looking backward, you always say, yeah, here I should have bought. But in reality, it's not like that. You are standing at the edge. So you cannot bet on a moment in time. What you have to bet is on the volatility itself. You don't know when something happens, but you know that something is going to happen. So he he's betting on the movement. How is he doing that? By buying insurance. Insurance means, metaphorically speaking, what he's actually buying is options. So how does an option work? For those of you who didn't study this or do this, an option is you buy the right to sell or buy something in the future for a certain price, and what you hope is when you buy the right to buy it, that it's actually more expensive in reality. So you bet that the Coca-Cola share is, you buy the right to buy the Coca-Cola share for 20 euro, and of course if it at that moment costs 40 euro, you made a big win. If it went the other way around, you know, you get the point. So he buys put options. So he says, I buy the right to sell an option, let's say on the S&P 500 index, at this moment in time. So I say this index option will cost whatever 20 euro, and then he hopes that the index falls down, of course, on 5 euro. Then he makes these gains. And now you will say, yeah, but that's crazy. But the weird thing about this is that look, here you see the performance of an exemplary option portfolio over 57 years. One important thing to understand options. If the option is not in your favor, that's why it's called an option, you don't have to sell it. So it's not like you don't lose the money. You buy it for 5 cents. What you want happens, you sell it or buy it. If this doesn't happen, you just lost your 5 cents, you know. But the cool thing is, if what you want happens, it explodes. The bigger the jump in the market, the bigger the explosion. So the thing is, you only need one win in your whole life. It's like the lottery. But you could say it's a little bit more probable than the lottery, because if you bet against the index, the index is jumping every now and then, you know. Winning the lottery ticket has way lower odds. So this is the strategy that he's doing. And I know it sounds not super appealing to all of you. Yeah, but okay, we'll get back to this. So, you know that Nassim Taleb, I told you, he's a cool guy. When he reached a certain amount of money, he said, thank you, I have enough. So he stepped out of the game. But his partner, Max Spitznagel, he went on with his hedge fund, Universal Investment. And I found an article saying, actually, this is the most successful investor of all time, because he has a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate over 70% in the last 20 years. And you know what? He just made this money on 2 days. 2 days. That's it. That's the explosion. So this is even better than Buffett. But I think that there is also a guy called Jim Simmons or something. He's also pretty good. But whatever. Another presentation. So, and now let's evaluate and discuss this a bit. So first, there is this term from people who don't like diversification. They call it diversification. So if we look at Beck's strategy now, the positive thing, it's like a one product strategy, so the transaction costs are low. But the negative thing is, yeah, you're not different from the market. And what is funny, in his book, he put this simulation here as a proof that his strategy is a good strategy. And actually, this is really crazy, because this is actually proof that it's a bad strategy. I'm sorry, my phone, yeah, actually it's readable here. My phone didn't manage to make a nicer picture. So if you look at this, you start with $1 million, and then you make simulations over 10 years in the market, what is going to happen? And Beck says, look at this, that's great. Like, only a very small number of points are under lost something from the million. But you know, this is not how the world works. If you keep your million, inflation ate it, or transaction cost ate it, or whatever. So it's really not working that way. And what is even worse, if you calculate like I took this number over there, this 10%, if you calculate this over time, you see that actually even though you were broadly diversified with this ETF, you actually remained, 75% of all players remained under the market. So he even proved that with his strategy, diversification does not really work. I mean, you can still say, good enough for me, risk mitigation, don't forget. I at least didn't lose everything, I made a bit more, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, even his strategy here is the mathematical proof out of his own book that actually it only works for 25% of players. If you actually want more than, be better than the market. So this is pretty shocking, but this is how it is. And then just a quick anti-fragility check. He's diversifying, he's evolutionary probation, while when you diversify you also bet on blue chips. So yeah, but he does not focus, so he's not saying no to anything, he just takes everything what he can get. And skin in the game, I think it's probably not relevant. And yeah, Foxin has also probably, I don't know if it's relevant, but you could say he has his one belief, he bets on this, so not very open to other things. So this is big, yeah? Then Buffett. Buffett is very interesting because Buffett, if you look at it statistically, there has to be a Buffett in this world. It's not clear if Buffett actually is not just the statistical result of this coin toss player who is on the top. Because we know there are thousands and maybe millions of people out there stock picking, and we know that most of them fail. But it has to be like this, that one person of these thousands or millions is just making enough times in a row the right coin toss, so that after that he's big enough to he's too big to fail, so to say. And if you look at, this is very interesting. So this is called, you have heard about it, the infinite monkey theorem. So if you put a monkey on a typewriter for all eternity, he will of course produce a Shakespeare text, you know? It's because ergodicity. This is how the system works. Every possible state will be reached in the system. So if I tell you now that maybe Buffett, because he also makes very little bets, you know, he makes one bet per year, sometimes he waits 3 years, so you cannot statistically say is he good, is he bad? He just maybe has luck, maybe has not luck, and maybe he was just lucky for some time and then he had enough, and from that moment on, you know, he's a self-fulfilling prophecy because what Buffett do, other people do, and you know, so it's very hard to actually say, is Buffett lucky or is it a good strategy? And what is also interesting, Buffett himself is so long in the market without dying, so he started when he was 14 years old, and actually he got rich, like really rich, the first billion he had with 53, so this is a long time. Most of us will not play that long, you know. And so he reached actually ergodicity. He is his own casino. He is so long that he has slowly getting an arithmetic average in his game. He's going away from what we are doing, you know. So he's not path dependent anymore. And of course there's this quote that time in the market beats timing in the market is also here. You see, it really got interesting way later. So if Buffett would have turned 65 years old and said like Nassim Taleb, okay, I have my 100 million, or it's enough, I will retire now, nobody would have ever heard of this guy. But he just kept playing and kept playing. And as we said, maybe he's the one lucky one, maybe he's too big to fail already, because he's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And here we are, at around 80 to 100 billion dollars. So that's a very interesting question, and also what we can learn here, it's the same for EFS, of course. So Hufi, you know where we are, but if we don't stop, and if we go on for some years, and if we don't die, actually this is going to happen. And he said it before, we had 20, because it's exponential, it is not linear. We had 10 cells, and now we have 20, and we have 4 times the returns. Think of it. It's really crazy what is happening in nature. So, but actually the other thing is, if you look at Buffett, maybe he's not so lucky, because his strategy is very anti-fragile. He's not diversifying in the sense that he makes a big diversification, but of course he's not only doing one bet, he has more companies in his thing. And the second thing is, he's also not using all his money for one bet. He's like splitting up the money to different things. Of course, he believes in value, so you could say evolutionary probation. He believes on saying no, so he's absolutely focusing only on things that are good. He says no to everything that he does not trust, so via negativa. He totally believes in skin in the game. He only wants to do business with people and companies who he really trusts. And I don't know if he's a fox or a hedgehog, but hard to say, maybe both at once, okay? So, and now let's go to Taleb Spitznagel. So, this is of course a very weird strategy, because what you actually do is you cut your wrist and you bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed, and then you hope that a miracle happens. I mean, we all think that every now and then the index makes a jump, but what if you die before? You know, you can lose too much blood. So that's really hard actually. This is against everything. We actually prefer the other way around. We want steady little gains and going, even though it's not how the world works, but we try to do that. But these guys say, no, this is not how it works, you wait. But the positive thing is you only need to win once, as I said, you know, then that's it, you know. The negative thing is this game even possible for small investors, for example? Because imagine, I'm sitting in EFS, it's Wednesday, I'm moderating the module team at Ineos, and then there is a blitz crash, takes place for 1 hour. And this was my last money. After that, I bled to death. But I just missed it. I could not sell my option, because at this time I could not look. The point is you have to be really sitting and waiting and staring at your screen for 10 years to get the right moment, you know? So only a psychopath can do that, you know? That's the problem. And if you want to invest in Universal, I think the minimum buy-in is $5 million, so also we don't have access, you know? And yeah, so it's against our nature. It's very hard, even though we might believe in it. And bleeding to death is possible. And what is also a bit weird about this strategy, actually what did we learn? The financial markets are for people that want money so that they can produce something. They have ideas, they want to scale them up, they want to help people, they want to sell something. So if everybody would do that, there would be no economy, because this is a pure bet. That's why an option is a derivative. It's not a real thing. So might sound super smart, but actually it's also bad at the same time, because like this, nothing is going to happen. Everybody is just going to sit in his cave and wait for a miracle to happen. But this is not how we want to live, you know. So it is a strategy that needs fools, you know, and the fools are us. People who are working, people who are creating startups, people who are betting, people who are trying things out. We are the fools because most of us will fail, but because we fail, the system is getting stronger and better, and then guys like this just earn all the money. That's how it is, I'm sorry. Yeah. And it also, of course, one important factor is it still depends on the market, you know, this strategy. So if the index drops 7 or 10%, there is on the other side somebody who can pay his debt to you, the option. But if, of course, the index drops 50 to 100%, it's over. The system collapsed, and then also this strategy is not anti-fragile anymore, because there is nobody on the other side left. So also this strategy, like Beck says, there has to be an ultra-stable economy on the other side that takes the shocks, because otherwise it does not work. You know, you should not bet on it. So, quick anti-fragility check. Of course, he is not so much diversified, but he's creating optionality by options. I mean, this is where the word is even coming from. He assumes that not one company or quality is good, but that the system has evolutionarily proven that it's stable, that it's not collapsing. He is absolutely saying no to most things, so they really try not to predict anything. Just wait till it happens. So I would say you could also say this is a via negativa. Skin in the game, I don't know actually. I think it's maybe not relevant. Maybe it is, because you need the partners on the other side who sell these options to you. Actually, one question, why are there even idiots on the other side who sell options to you? Well, it's the same reason why the whole economy exists, because you're working in a bank and you want your steady income so that you get your bonus at the end of the year. So you think, whatever, yeah, I have no skin in the game, it's not my money. I'm just selling these financial products on the market, and I'm probably only working for 3 years in this position, and if the next crash comes in 10 years, not my problem. So this is always happening. I even know somebody, like an acquaintance of mine, he's an investor, and 2 years ago the bank offered him an insurance. It's basically this. They said, if you give us now 40,000 euros, we will insure you against the interest rate hike. And I mean, we didn't know when it was going to happen, but after putting so much money like never before during COVID in the market, we kind of could predict, again, not when, but that at some point, the interest rates will go up, and now he got 2 million from the bank, because this was the insurance, 40,000 to 2 million. This is exactly actually how options work, you know? So this is actually happening out there. It's super crazy. You ask yourself how this is possible, but it is happening. Good. And the last is the foxiness. I don't know. You could say actually he's also contradicting himself. He's only following one idea, But maybe this anti-fragility is an idea that is all ideas at once, I don't know. It's so hard to say. Coming slowly to an end here. So what is the strategy in life now? And actually, Taleb himself says he would call it the barbell strategy. It's a double strategy. It's actually how hedge funds really work, you know. On the one side, do something extremely safe, evolutionary probated, stable job, normal company. And on the other side, put yourself in a place where you can gain from like from a black swan, where you are anti-fragile. So this means, for example, you just work in a company, but on the other side you buy Bitcoin, or you work in a company and you try to start up with your own business idea, or you want to get famous with holding speeches, but you still work at a company, you know, this kind of stuff. So that's a really good strategy, because maybe now we produce a video, then it will go viral on YouTube, I have no idea, but whatever. And then suddenly, bam, you know, I was anti-fragile, all of this. And this is exactly also what we're doing as a company, if you think about it. We are working on our customers that we have, but at the same time we're doing business development. So you know what, actually we are all doing it already. We're all doing it already, but we should be aware why. The second one, so now what are they doing? So back is really interesting, because I'm sure till today you thought diversification is actually very safe, but it's actually not so clear. It's as you're non-ergodic in your lives, it's actually not so safe. And now depends what you mean with safe. Okay, the probability that you really lose everything is low, but it's even lower the probability that you actually win something with it, yeah, beyond the market. Buffett is actually a little bit not telling the truth, you know. So Buffett is not only an investor who has stocks and who waits for returns, he actually also has some companies that produce constant cash flow, insurances, he loves them. So what is happening in a financial crash? Everything goes down, but do you in a financial crash immediately stop your car insurance, your health insurance, no. So the insurance income is very stable and goes on, and then Buffett has loads of cash on his hands to just buy shares cheap on the market. So much for value investing, or it's the humans. He just is anti-fragile, you know. He puts himself in an anti-fragile position. And our guys from the tail risk hedging, Spitznagel and Taleb, they anyway also say, I mean, they are basically only doing that, but to their customers they say, of course, only take a small fraction of your portfolio and put it in this tail risk strategy, and with the rest do diversification or any other strategy. So balance it out. So the point is actually, never lose, always stay liquid. Always stay liquid. That's it. That's the simple trick. If you're liquid, always liquid, then you're ready for everything. It's not as easy as it sounds, but then again, it's very simple, and it's a good thing. And so now I want to end on a philosophical notion. I realized one thing by reading about this anti-fragility. This is now very constructed, because what is a conservative anyways, or the other a progressive, but let me just be very cliche here. So conservatives don't believe in evolution. But funny enough is that actually evolution believes in conservatives. Because conservatives are people that had a new idea 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and then they stick with it. They were hedgehogs. And this idea, for some reason, this was the one idea. The one book that we will read in 20 years, 20,000 new books this year, and one book will remain. And they survived. And if they survived with this idea for 20 years, then they will, as you know, survive another 20 years. While all new ideas, or all new books, will disappear, or all, 99.9%, because the world is unfair. So, they tend the garden, they save money, they have weapons. This is a very good uncorrelated asset class. This makes you very anti-fragile in case something happens. They believe in God. They believe more in the family, because this is skin in the game. Believing in the government is not skin in the game. You cannot trust a person that you don't know personally. This is an asymmetric risk. And they only do things which are really proven. So we know the world is not getting better in that way. You need the fools. You need the fools in the markets. Trying new things, being creative, having humor, you know. Try and error, doing ventures, doing businesses. Be non-ergodic for the greater ergodicity of everybody. And the conservatives, they are really not idiots. They just outsource this to the progressives, you know. So they have a way higher probability of survival, but of course their life is way more boring. So it's your decision that you have to make. Okay, thank you very much. I hope. I hope you don't know why most of us are losing, but it's a cool ride because being a fool is just the better thing to do, I guess. So thank you.